has 8. Now, we will also talk then, after that is all over, we will talk to, at the top of the hour, Jerry Bonkowski on the race, which really was a fine race. I mean, and I thought, just an wonderful, wonderful showcase for Kurt Busch. Victories beating out his brother. The track strategy, coming back from being the first car that pitted, the first car that wrecked, driving a damaged car. I mean, it really was a storybook victory for Busch. His 3rd victory of the year. Again, he extends his dominance in Bristol. My goodness. In traffic 2 hours to get into the place, don't get me wrong, and then just having to wait around all the time. But still, you just get, I mean, there's so many ideas people are having right now. Again, to the spoils belong the victors. It's for these reasons we have a Battle of Bristol. When the place was selling out, they didn't want a football game there. Now they've got to keep the venue exciting and hip and new and all that. They've got a football game there. And furthermore, you look at moving to the place. That's the most popular venue in NASCAR. Let other racetrack sports. They got a lot of clout, and now Bristol needs some help. That's obvious. So anyway, we'll talk to Jerry Bonkowski about that at 1. Virginia Tech hires Mike Young, and then close to hiring Rick Barnes. Also, other coaching news, Eric Musselman. It looked like that Steve. And all of a sudden, if you ever thought, wait a minute, what will ETSU ever do to get out of its subservience to UT? And then suddenly, everybody thinks, oh, well, if Barnes leaves, then they would certainly go out and hire Steve Forbes, wouldn't they? At least that becomes the speculation. Even if it doesn't happen. That's what TSU, subservient to Tennessee once again. Then again, when you lose 59-3, I wonder if that would mean if Forbes would go down there, if the Vols would come back up TSU. Be that Kara Larson, who now seems to be the choice, be it, I don't know, Kelly Paget, whoever. Doesn't look like it's going to be Jeff Waltz. I've explained why many times. I think it's obvious the Lady Vols hires, it has to be a woman. Maybe one of the reasons why he's considering UCLA is simply, you know what, over here I got a football coach as an AD. Football's always going to come number 1. At UCLA, basketball's going to be number 1. You do the math. Yeah, where does a basketball coach want to be? Tooth for the Bruins. But then again, you think about John Wooden, and it seemed like, and he lived certainly a long, long life, but it seemed like even when he was winning national titles, he was something of an older gentleman and all that. So maybe that's not what we think of, even though Rick Barnes is hardly LA hip. Well, was Joe Torre LA hip when he went out to manage the Dodgers? Really? Barnes met with Phil Fulmer last night. There is a lot of traction. It appears that, he's at UCLA. They turned down Jimmy Dixon. Dixon was from Southern California. I was a bit surprised at Jamie Dixon, but then again, he used to be the assistant under Ben Howland. And then you just start thinking, okay, yeah. But then who goes after the Italians that I think you have to look at with the was not getting the salary he thought that he deserved from Wofford. He wasn't even paid $200,000. And when he said, hey, look what I did for you guys. Because, recruited Fletcher Magee, even though on Friday he said to everyone, well, you know what, it was a whole staff, all of Wofford when I was there recruited Fletcher Magee, but he didn't deny that he was the primary recruiter. Certainly if Fletcher Magee could have played this way. They lost one of their players because declaring for the NBA draft was Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Maybe this wasn't the biggest surprise in the world, but I don't know if it was as surprising as Jordan Bone's announcement, and certainly we think that Grant Williams is draft. But Nickeil Alexander-Walker has decided to go for the NBA draft. He flirted with the idea of turning pro after last year, but opted to return to Blacksburg instead. So he gave, Virginia Tech certainly their national ranking this year. Was big on that. Trip to the Sweet 16, nearly defeated UCLA. Well, remember this. It's not as if Tennessee, what with Bone evidently leaving, Schofield, Alexander, Grant Williams is thinking about it. It's not as if he's got a turnkey winner next season. So not Holly Warlick or whoever coaches the Lady Vols. Yeah, Barnes will be. He's leaving traditional football school for traditional basketball school. Of course, that's what you'll be looking to try to do. Jalen Hands, by the way, who was the point guard at UCLA, has announced that he will enter the NBA draft. So, we can discuss that. I know that he's actually signed with BDA Sports Management. Chris Wilkes has also lost, and it looks like that there will be plenty of, players leaving for the pro game from UCLA. Look at Moses Brown. But then again, when Barnes went to Tennessee, he was getting 2-star players. That's all Admiral Schofield was. At UCLA, he'll get 5-star players. You don't think that he would lose Josiah James and bring him with him to UCLA, but who knows? The ink has not been signed as of yet. Elsewhere, by the way, speaking of UCLA, Murray Bartow did not get the Tennessee Tech job. That went instead to John Pelfrey. I mentioned before Eric Musselman going to Arkansas. And again, that just shows you here that you thought Steve Forbes, safe, ETSU, build the program, turnkey winner for the next 2 years. This will be real good. And then this Barnes thing comes up. Of course, it's not predestined by any means that Forbes would go to UT. Why wouldn't they hire Wes Miller instead? Obviously, Virginia Tech could have had Steve Forbes, but they wanted the coach that won all his games in the conference. About the same age, why not? Wes Miller is said to have not been that interested because he might want to be the coach at Wake Forest in a year or two. And then eventually North Carolina. Well, you can certainly if you can go from Tennessee to UCLA 64, you can certainly, as a young 40-something, go from Tennessee to North Carolina if and when Roy Williams ever retires. And you just want to think, maybe, just maybe, there'd be a better chance for North Carolina to be interested in a successful Tennessee basketball coach. Got a long time to buy out. I do. If you asked me, who would you rather have, Forbes, or would you rather have, it would be the Greensboro coach, Wes Miller. I'm going to talk to the ETSU baseball coach after this.